you all can hear me. And today we're looking at the Kohberger case. So it was actually 3 a.m. and my sleep pattern's a bit nocturnal, although I don't sleep during the day. So not quite a nocturnal creature. So it was 3 a.m. UK time that the announcement that I had seen it, that Kohberger had taken the plea to plead guilty so that he avoids the death penalty. Straight away, I'd felt anger, by the way. I'd felt anger from the family. Interesting enough, like, when I wanted to record this, that was one thing that wanted to say. But then the next day, I'd seen like what was the title? Like, some family members are not happy with that outcome. So I think there's probably a split on people that between the families, the 4 families, I believe it is, isn't it? Because it's 4 of them, on this being given. What I felt straight away is that at least 2 of the families wanted to see the person who did this, in this case, Brian Kohberger. I don't know if I still have to say innocent to proven guilty. So on that note, sorry, the dog is walking around as if he's on high alert because of something, so it's just distracting me. That was something I wanted to cover, but I don't think all the families. I did watch the day of him saying he's guilty, and directly while I was watching that, I was getting a lot of people wanting to watch that in anticipation to hear if he tells a story with the pleading of guilty. Okay. Now, patrons and members, you would, and some of you might have caught it in the quick fire questions that I do recording on, that I said that between the end of June and mid of July, there's going to be a, you think you're going like this, there's going to be a massive deviation. And obviously, the DoorDash delivery woman had said she'd seen him, but I don't know if that was during the end of June, mid-July. But that wasn't it. It was going to come out. It was a total kind of like jolt that I said would happen in this case. Now, when I've previously mentioned Brian and his energy that I've got, and actually, I don't know if there's a subscriber or someone who said they'd be interested. I think it is when I was doing the channeling or the first reading of the Long Island serial killer, and I described the energy I get with Brian. Not that they're the same, I just went off topic for a moment, and somebody said it'd be interesting for you to say that. Now, a couple of things here before I go into what kind of energy I was getting as well with him, and sorry if I'm all over the place. I just want to deviate on something else while it's here, because I feel like I'm getting loads of messages now. The Diddy case, if you want me to do a reading on that and the outcome, obviously he was charged with 3 not guilties. But I did kind of prep, if you're watching my videos, because I did a reading back in April, May. I did a couple of readings, and I mentioned that they're not going to be able to give him the guilty on everything. And basically, because there's an overcharge, and by that overcharge as well, there's implications of a lot of people that they can't really take down. It's like a massive can of worms. And then I did the trial 1, week 2, and I said, if you want me to continue. But I said in those that the prosecution really needs to amp it up, because at the moment it's not proving the RICO, and I described what I understand of RICO. After that, I didn't really watch the trial. I was going to do another tap in, and I felt like it was going to be very similar to what I'd said. They really need to amp it up. Now, I was going to do a reading on this tonight, but I don't feel, the reason I didn't continue with the trial readings is, like I said, I felt like I didn't even watch the after that, and I felt like there was going to be a void, especially when I was getting from spirit my past readings, and I don't know if I do a reading and explain a little bit on this, if it's gonna be a bit of a nasty feedback. But that's why I stopped that, because I could see what was going to happen. But that doesn't not mean that he's not going to be up or not guilty for other things that are going to come to light, like it could be underage and stuff like that. I've mentioned that in previous readings. So I just wanted to mention that, because if you do want a sort of similar to this done on Diddy and a discussion around that, because also not only psychic, but it's interesting, I was going to say sexual, psychic, but pretty down to earth and common sense kind of person. So I do look at it like that, and I do mix that sort of stuff with my psychic, or the channeling we do, or the card readings, like common sense in that. Not in terms of when I'm saying I'm channeling or I'm doing tarot, but like this discussion, I bring common sense to it for us to exchange. So let me know in the comments if you want that. For now, I'm going to continue with this. So what I can see, like if the trial went ahead, the prosecution are confident, okay, but there would have been a massive outroar, and I mean outside the courthouse. I mean at the time of sentencing, at the time of even if he got the firing squad. And I don't want to discuss my thoughts on this firing squad, because there's going to be people that are not going to understand maybe what is presented, because obviously there's 4 individuals that have gone in this way. But I did do a reading on this case a few months ago, and I think I got quite a few things. Now, also something else with the knife that I was getting, because I was going to do a reading before this plea came out, and I was going to see where we can find the weapon, and I think I'll pull cards on that. So hopefully I don't. Let's do that first before I forget. But what I think happened with the weapon is he obviously forgot the knife sheath, because I said he's forgot something, and a subscriber had said, remember, disclaimer, this for intent purposes only. And it's like he travels over a bridge, and it crosses over something, so I don't know if it crosses over a state in the state or a city in the state. So I think Idaho is part of Washington, isn't there? So is it Washington? He crosses over, and he thinks about throwing it in the water. So I think there's a bridge with water. There's a crossover of a city or a town. Now, I think he actually takes it and he buries it, because he wants to go back to it, not as a souvenir, but possibly to use again. So there's the energy of wanting to fling this over the bridges he's driving, and either couldn't or decided to go bury it. Now I can dive into that a bit later to see what I pinpoint, but these are things that I was just getting even without sitting, meditating and channeling. And you will know as psychics, a lot of the psychics, or if I was doing a case, That would be my main focus. I'd sit, channel, meditate. So they meditate for hours or days to get their answers. For me, it's kind of like a tap in, all right? And if I'm not necessarily feeling whatever I say, though, it's not like flimsy, you know. And I think you've seen when I don't feel, I need like triple confirmation of the cards or something. So I'm not just doing it because I see a lot of tarot readers do it on entertainment purposes only, and I'm wondering whether I should lighten up and do things on basically an entertainment purposes. So like whatever the cards say, so the conspiracy decks, etc. Well, back to this guy, right? Yeah, banners, everything, and I feel like the judge, although I haven't seen anything apart from that where he pleads guilty, I feel like the judge was really set in stone on from day one that this was going to be massive coverage, and he's confident, he's not frightened, but he needs to keep everything on the straight and narrow, because he not only does he want to deliver to the defense and the prosecution and anyone in the courthouse or public or family members that can think of ways to like appeal or get a mistrial or impeachment or whatever they say. There's another word as well, isn't there? Mistrial. There's another thing that the defense always do after a few, like a day or something. They say, like, not a mistrial, but we basically don't think the prosecution presented enough evidence for the jury to be able to make a decision. I forgot what they generally say. We are going for something. But the judge is so strict and adamant in his energy because he knows this was going to go awire, especially if he didn't show. Now, I do think he closed off on the defense a lot. I know that the defense tried to delay, and I think did they try to play on maybe his mental health or a learning difficulty or something. I really don't know, but they got a lot of no's and rejection. So I see that the attorneys sat with Kohberger and said, listen, this is going to be a difficult case, you know, with the things that line up against you. That's the discussion between him and Kohberger, his attorneys. And at the moment, the judge seems on the straight and narrow. And it seems like his belief, not only is it state law, it seems like his belief in such a big case that he could go for the firing squad. And they said to him, you're best off going for this plea. Now, from the defense's side, I am going to pull cards. I took notes from prosecution and defense. Something that's not always sat well with me, though, is them knocking that house down. That's 4 exed people in that house. You do not knock that house down because you think you've got all the evidence. You don't have all the evidence. They didn't get all the evidence they could. I do also want to say that I see very easily that some people think he's innocent and some psychics could believe he's innocent. Okay, I don't know what it is up there. Some say innocent, some say guilty. And the reason being is, I think there's, I don't know the reason they're saying, but I'm giving you what I see. There's a mixed energy. So, you know, at first when I see this, I see like college students that was so good and stuff, but actually there was rugs there, and I think there was actually a rug dealer. There is some shady woman and there is a shady guy, and the guy is darker skinned, that used to go to that house or at least been there 1 or 2 times. That energy is all over, and they are not good people. So I think they might have past convictions. Nothing like Brian, okay? So I wonder if that energy is getting mixed up, because energy and the messages are very difficult to state, and I could be wrong. So I'm just giving you my opinion, right? So yeah, I think the knife, like I said, something like that, but I think it's for him to go back to, not as a souvenir that, you know, this has got whoever I was obsessed with on. No, it's actually it's kind of like you or something, you know, this is my lucky one, I'll use it again, so that he goes back to it. I think people, I don't know if I mentioned this, sorry if I'm all over the place. I think people believed he was going to say a story, because when I started watching that play, I felt like people that were like, there was a lot of anticipation energy. There was the anger from the family and anticipation that people wanted to see if he says something. And he didn't. He just said guilty, didn't he? Guilty, guilty, guilty. And I think people wanted a story. They want the story. Because what I do want to say is the prosecution have built their own story. And I feel like this story could actually be like cinematic or AI presented to us. So if someone's an AI professional, they could easily take what the prosecution have done, which I think what's going to happen in courthouses, there will be a little bit of a film of what we believe happened, and they show like an AI film creation of what they believe happened, along with all the evidence and the timelines, etc. There's something about there's various things. So I've got notes on my phone, but I'm going with the flow of what I feel so far, or what I can remember. So although the prosecution have put together a story, because there is no surveillance of him actually doing it, there is still that doubt, right? This DoorDash delivery woman, if she's proven credible, is a big winning element when I look at the jury, and if this was presented with the prosecution, because without her, there was still a lot of doubt. I don't see that the defense have picked up on this woman and this dark man that have past convictions to present as an alternate, but I do think they were trying to present alternate, and they were trying to go with Kohberger's either mental or something. And I want to pull cards on his schizophrenia. I think they were trying to do, was it autism, or I don't know if they wanted to do mental health, but there is something there that they were trying to do, like there's a disconnect of him. And I think they've also tried to, when they talk, they're going to present this. When they talk about this, they're going to present, well, he was, can't you even see how he was in the courtroom? So not so stoic, very in control, very stoic. Be interesting to see if the thing is, it's not clear, is it because it's on Zoom, but those body language experts, what they say, the problem with some of these body language experts is some of them don't like to say guilty unless the person's come forward guilty. And there's a massive panel that I think they're amazing, but I've noticed that with them, that they don't like to say actually this was guilty until the person has been proven guilty. But that for me is just like grow some BASSLS. Zain can't spell. Your channel is gonna hit 1 million soon, you know, YouTube's not gonna F with you. And it's very difficult to see. I've described how I see him as a panting wolf with adrenaline. I feel like, do you know when you're preparing for a marathon? He was doing these kind of things. it wasn't his first time outside that house. It wasn't the first time that he goes outside a house and tries to do a prep, or tries to do like, how far can I get without being noticed? Not to X someone, but like, firstly, go to the door, see how I can get in. Can I get in? Those kind of things I feel like he was doing. I also want to say that I don't know what he was studying. I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, but I do feel like, I think I put here criminal law, but I don't get a criminal law with that. I don't get a yes with that. I get more criminology. What's the other one? Criminal law, criminology. Oh, criminal psychology, maybe. Um, the latter two seem to be either something he was in studying or of interest to him in his own time. And I wonder what comes out with this, because sometimes they've got interest in those kind of things, or SKs. And yeah, there's something about marathon. And that makes me want to pull cards on the lady, the girl who was not exed that evening. Um, because to me it's between two things that I were getting, and I put a note here, and I want to pull cards just to confirm before I say. I don't think he was having voices in his head. So if it's like anyone says, yeah, they're, so what I'm doing is energy channeling, tapping into energy, mind probe. Some call it remote viewing, right? Um, I don't get voices in his head, but I get discussions between him and what he's going to do. I'll give you an example, right? Do you know when we've, like, let's say we've got a Karen at work, and she says something, but you don't respond back. And then you're like, why didn't I respond back to the bit? Right? And then the next in the evening you ruminate and you can't get over it, and you're like, next time she says this, I'm gonna tell her to F off. You're like, you ramping yourself up with this. I get that with him. I don't get he was hearing voices. I get the urges, discussions with himself, quite impulsive. It's the adrenaline that I was seeing. I always see this panting wolf, where I see the cold. When you breathe in the cold, there's that thing. That's what I see with him. Um, and he watched the house for a while. Now, I don't know if he'd known these girls. Everyone's saying about rejection. I'm quite sick of this whole thing about rejection and bullying, like with the serial killer, Long Island one. I've said that word, I shouldn't have. He was bullied, he was rejected, and he was losing his importance. Yes, but I'm so sick of also hearing that as, people trying to analyze the psychology behind these. Um, it can't be every single one of them. Yes, they go through stuff, but there's something. And I think he thought he would get away with this, to the point where he was a bit tardy. Um, and obviously with that you can say obnoxious. And that's the same energy I get that with his defense. He was like, this is my story and they can get me off. And I'll be honest with you, the story that whatever he tells his defense has gaps in that the defense could present against the prosecution. Some of that was, I get something about evidence not being taken straight away. Obviously, the house being torn down. This is what the prosecution was scared the defense was going to play on. Something about police officer or police. Um, Obviously alternates, but that wasn't something so big, because it seemed like when I tap into the defense, it's not that they've picked up on all these alternates, but real alternate is a female and a dark male that I see, but I don't believe they were there and did it. And why would he leave one person, right? So that's something else, the defense and the prosecution. Something else is that I get with the prosecution. They're worried about the time frame to track him at that house. And even if there's a surveillance of his car at that house, that's why I say the DoorDash delivery lady, as I tap into this, was a massive win for the prosecution when I tap into what the jury would have futurized, right? Because it really nails something. Whereas before there was that gap where the prosecution's really worried of, they cannot pinpoint his travel for a certain period of time. And that is so important in such a case. So important when, what I'm getting, you're talking about a party house. So yeah, he saw a party, just turned up. He's a bit strange. He was turning up, but then he left because he didn't feel invited or whatever, and no one can say no. There's something else the prosecution is worried about is, even though if there is a surveillance of something, but again, it's to do with travel or car, even if there's something of a surveillance, you can't pinpoint and see Kohberger in the car, but you also can't pinpoint the make and the plate of the car at a certain point in time. There's something there the prosecution cannot pinpoint directly itself. Let me just ask something. So he was not watching the house for a period of time prior to this. So if that's being said, I don't agree. But what he was doing is, he'd been in that house before he committed this. So whether it was earlier that evening, even if it's 10 minutes, he was in that house prior to committing what he did. And it was very fast that he did it. He had seen it from his car, and he'd actually been in that house during the daytime when no one was there. So it wasn't that evening that he'd been in the house before he committed this. He's been in that house during the daytime when no one was there. Okay, so that's what I get from the cards. I just wanted to confirm that. Okay. Had he watched other houses and done like, can I get in this house? Can I check this? Can I get into a house as like step 1, step 2 prepping? It's weird because it's like I see the wolf and I see a running and I see like a training as if you're training for the marathon. Not that he was on a treadmill training that way, but do you understand what I'm saying? He's so I've just locked my iPhone. I don't know why I seem to have forgot my password while I was doing that. I typed it wrong a couple of times. Anyway, so I'll try and remember everything that I was going to tap into. Then from the defense's side, they felt like there was a lot against him. They also could see this judge on the straight and narrow. But they felt that the public and the outcry could work with them or could work so against them. They were worried about that, which is also interesting. Let's pull cards while I go back to my notes and see how is Brian feeling before he took it and presented with it. He was feeling kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. And it seems like while they were waiting for like the trial to go ahead, it seems like more was coming in. We've got the Hanged Man, the stuckness. This is where it's moving forward. It's taking pace. There's no delaying. And he felt quite like, before taking the plea deal, he felt quite stuck between, am I going to lose? Am I not going to lose? And this is where I feel like, I think he's got female attorneys, if I'm not mistaken, spoke to him. But I also wonder if this is his mother that spoke to him and said, listen, it's really going to be tough. And it's a heavy burden to really go through the whole thing. I also get with him is that he really didn't want the details of everything that he'd done have to come out. And he also believes that, this is channeling, that whatever he did, the prosecution will not get 100% right. Now, he liked that idea, but he also didn't like that idea because he felt like things that could come up in the trial would make him look more of a creep. And the story would make him look more of a failure than it actually is in terms of what his steps were, if that makes sense. So it was kind of like, before it's kind of like there was a heaviness to him, and I think it's because of the DEATH penalty, and there was a slight fear of the continuous aggressive mentioning of the firing squad. So let's see, after the plea deal, how he felt. Just bear with me a minute. Okay. And so I do believe his lawyers recommended he accept it. Looking at the evidence, and didn't want more of like stuff about him coming out. Believe it or not, he feels it a bit embarrassed. He's like, this is a bit, I sound like an absolute creep. Not because of the Xing he did, but the other things that he's frightened would come out, even though the prosecution doesn't know. He also felt like he wasn't supposed to get caught, and he felt like his lawyers would win this. Like, so, shit, I got caught, but I'm not going to get caught again. I'm not going to get caught being guilty. It's interesting cards. So he felt there was real. So I think this is the judge, right? This is the judge. I am not wavering. This is him feeling in that courtroom, still spotlight on him, taking the plea deal. it's something he really thought about, and he really, I feel like while he was thinking about it, he also got so far into what he studied that he started making, like, as if he made a case study about it while he was thinking about it. That's what, like, the case study, the law about it. And he's like, I best take the one thing that gives me a solid solidarity, which is the plea deal. At least I know what's happening. I have the one coin, at least I know what's happening now. Whereas with the plea deal, it's like, without the plea deal, it's like you could face the penalty. It could be that extreme one, but also I'm getting the discussions between them. Also, we don't know when they will say, like, some people are 20 years later put to X, but put, lethal injection or whatever it is. But with you, this is 4 killings, and you might not even have that 10-year, is it after 10 years they can appeal? There's something about that. You might not even have that 10-year period to do that. What I'm getting here is a mix, by the way. I'm getting a mix that the lawyers said we don't know how long, when you could be put to death. But I'm also getting here from Spirit is if he was bargaining on an appeal, it's likely that he would have gone before that appeal deadline, and it would have been at least a 10-year, if not 20, he could appeal. And it's likely that this it's kind of like he would not have had like a 20-year, 25, a very shorter amount in jail before he's put to X, because of the severity of the number of lives and the outroar that would have happened on this case. That's what I get also from Spirit. Okay, please give this a like, a thumbs up if you're enjoying this. Okay, so I might split it into 2, but there's also, I get the prosecution, an issue for the prosecution is something about jurisdiction laws or state, and the judge is well aware of this as well, but he didn't want to show that. He's like, this is all in hand, but there is something that could have worked towards the defense's. Do you know what? I get that the prosecution is more aware and worried about what the defense can pick up, but the defense has not picked up on every little thing that the prosecution is worried about and feels that they could have picked up to win or poke holes in their story. There's also another thing of the prosecution feel like there's going to be a lot of conspiracy of people that say this has been tampered with. Even if he committed it, this has been tampered with and something else, someone else is involved or he's set up. And sympathy for him in terms of what could have been proven in terms of a learning difficulty or his mental health or his demeanor, where I go back to the defense, say, look at his demeanor. That is not someone, whether they're guilty or innocent, that sits like that. Sorry, I'm back. Absolutely SHIT myself, and the poor dog is so scared of fireworks, but I don't know what's happening, but it's massive. Come here. Come here. Just need to put my heart back from my stomach. Okay. The defense, a lot of knockbacks, rejected requests, Um, and they do feel they do have a defense, and there was an ability to sow doubt, especially around the police and why the house was not down. And also proving how the prosecution cannot connect him and every single time period, because there is that lack of placing him or GPS. And they feel like they can state that because there isn't 100% surveillance of the whole thing, which gives a gap in what the prosecution are stating, because also the prosecution's story is very much on what they believe. There's something about a gag order because evidence was messed up. So was there a gag order on this? Because I get that from there's something on a gag order. They did it quickly because evidence was messed up and leaks were going to be happening. And there's something not right with why they did that to the home. This is why I've done this reading, because a lot of you might not watch this thinking it's over and done with, but seeing the future if this trial went ahead, a lot of people think it's a slam dunk, and there's a lot against him, and I believe he is the person, but there is a, it was going to get messy. It was going to get messy, and there was going to be a public outcry. In a way, Kohberger was looking forward to this trial, but not to what was very much starting to get absorbed in terms of the death penalty for him. Just seeing what else I wanted to cover. It's interesting how I see absolute mayhem. Definitely people were really disappointed there's no story, and people want this because they want kind of like a story. Let's just see something. Yeah, he does have some kind of mental health issue, and I'm not talking about psychopath because obviously he is. It could be schizophrenia, right? There's some kind of something there. I get the confirmation with my cards. Some kind of learning difficulty, mental health disease, something like that. I'm not talking about a psychopath, he is. But there is something there, and I wonder if it was diagnosed as well. At some stage in his life he was diagnosed with this, so it's going to be interesting. We're going to have a lot of things that come out that we think was right, and I think it's going to cause more more doubt actually that it's him. That's going to come out. He's definitely guilty. He's definitely guilty. Does he enjoy the spotlight? Not this trial period. It's what he enjoys is the thrill and adrenaline of what he's doing, his plan, his own fantasy land. Some people might be feeling like he enjoys being recognized, this trial, going to trial, being seen on cameras. He's not necessarily enjoying that. He is enjoying the discussions he's having with his attorneys and his lawyers, and that kind of back and forth and what we're going to do, and you need to do this and that. But he's not enjoying the limelight of having this trial. He enjoys, what I get with him, he enjoys this fantasy land of him, and it's like he wanted a name eventually, never to be caught, of like one of the world's top listed, I was going to see if I can get a number, say listed SKs, male SKs, get male, like master SKs, not just SK, like a master, like an emperor. We got the world and the emperor. Yeah, I definitely think he buried it. He buried the knife. I get that. So I hope you enjoyed this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and get this processed. You shall see it either the next day or whenever you can. And members, Patreons, you will have the first access. Make sure your notifications are on, because anything that's not a special edition or not for in the Super Soul edition, which is the additional stuff. So if it's duplicate, that eventually is members first and gets to subscribers. Oh, I'm feeling like I want to puke. Oh, that's very strange. I think it's the fireworks that give me a fright. The poor dog is here as well. I'm not going to keep duplicates, basically. Give this a like, a thumbs up, and help me grow the channel. Help me if you're enjoying the stuff, so that we can have daily coverage. I'm going to sign off because I think the fright or something's just happened in my stomach. Doesn't feel so good. Also see where little legs is behind this settee. Take care of yourselves, stay blessed, and I hope you have a lovely day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Obviously your comments always help me, because it's not necessarily a case I am following. Please let me know if, like this, you would have liked it being chopped up into like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or the full thing in one go. Take care and bye for now, everyone. Stay blessed.